This is a production of Gordon College's Scot Radio.
Scot Radio.
The end is where we begin tonight. I am your host, Chase Draus, alongside my equally hosted Liam Carroll and special guest, Ben Schneider.
Greetings. Just all remember, Jeffrey Epstein did not commit suicide. He was murdered.
As you can tell, we're talking about the Epstein case today.
But not right off the bat. We got more important stuff.
Oh boy, yeah.
So, all right, just to kind of get this out of the way, because this is pretty important for Boston sports fans. Zdeno Chara played his 1,500th game in the NHL. Storied career, Stanley Cup champion, holder of the record for the hardest slap shot ever recorded. Got a standing ovation in Montreal as a Bruin. Hell has frozen over.
That's pretty impressive.
But, yeah, and the Bruins are still number one at the power rankings. The veteran leadership is holding its own, and Tuukka is playing on his head, and Yaroslav Halak is, honestly, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest, he could be a starter just about anywhere else. So, I mean, really, the Bruins are on fire. Washington Capitals at number 2. New York Islanders jumping 8 spots to the number 11, or from the number 11 to the number 3. Barry Trotz's system is on fire. Nashville is number 4, and St. Louis number 5. So anyway,
Islanders on a 10-game win streak right now.
Yeah, so I mean,
I'm always kind of wary of power rankings, especially towards the beginning of the season, because it has mostly to do with predictions, and they kind of vary a lot. They don't really mean a lot till like mid to end season, really.
Yeah, but right now Bruins are on fire, and honestly, we're seeing a lot of good hockey, so I'm happy. So, I mean, it's just very entertaining. And so, if you guys listen to Scot Radio, or if you know Ben Schneider, he is truly a magician when it comes to radio and how he's able just to craft stories. I'm gonna brag about you. Hey, you know what the Bible says? Don't let your own lips praise you, let it do it for others. Guess what? I'm doing it for you. Oh, you're welcome.
I appreciate the kind words.
But
thank you.
Mostly probably what he's most well known for is motorsports. And Ben, would you like to open us up with the first big story of the night?
Yes. So Roger Penske, one of the most accomplished team owners and businessmen in the history of American motorsports and really motorsports worldwide, he just kind of a couple days ago bought Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the IndyCar series.
Just casually.
Yeah. No big deal. Nobody saw it coming.
I mean,
for those of you who are listening, maybe you're just a stick and ball sport fan. Of course, if you listen to my show, I usually try to avoid those comparisons. But it would basically be like Robert Kraft, Jerry Jones, Jeffrey Lurie, or top NFL owner like that buying the NFL. This is a big, big deal.
And I mean, Roger Penske is an accomplished all across the board. I mean, he raced in F1, to my understanding.
Oh, he owned cars that raced in F1.
And he, very involved with NASCAR and racing in the States. And he just bought an entire league. And, I mean...
And its most famous track.
Yeah. And apparently, according to Yahoo Finance, they said that it's been up for sale for a year to a select few. And the Penske family was one of them, and obviously Roger Penske himself bought it. And I really just, when he first told me that, I'm like, excuse me, what? Because
I think everybody was.
This guy just bought a sport.
Yeah.
That's unheard of, honestly.
I was actually really impressed with how just... It was so nonchalant, and honestly, it kind of flew under everyone's radar. I mean, there's just a casual, it's not even Yahoo News, it's Yahoo Finance. And they're talking about the financial implications. I mean, they said that Penske's wealth is probably around $1.2 billion right now. And
insane.
Yeah, and they're saying right now it's that most likely the whole IndyCar,
purchase?
Let's just call it the purchase, is probably somewhere around $750 million, roughly. I mean, obviously it's everything's confidential right now because obviously you just purchased an entire sports league. I wouldn't want that getting out.
I've heard anywhere from $300 million to a couple billion. So
it's-
obviously we don't know the exact details.
And
but
the thing is that IndyCar was actually on the rise too. Like, I mean, it mentions in here one of the analysts for auto racing said that I was very optimistic about seeing the younger fans. I see a lot of kids at the racetrack, and the demographics are getting younger and younger and younger, which gives me a lot of hope for the future of this sport. And I'll be upfront, Indianapolis 500 is easily one of my top 5 racetracks of all time. Like, I love this racetrack. Every time it comes on, I usually try to watch it. I know my dad's always watching it, and it's one of the most exciting races of the year. And just the history behind the track and just the prestige, it's like Indianapolis is one of the big tracks. Like, if you win at the Indy 500, like, that's a big deal. I would even argue that it's worth more than winning a championship.
oh, it is.
So
I think Scott Dixon has 1 Indy 500 win and 5 IndyCar championships, and I think you ask him, would you rather it be the other way around, or speaking theoretically, which one would you rather have? 1 or 5 of? You'd rather have 5 Indianapolis 500s and 1 championship.
I mean, it's truly like the peak of motorsports. And the reason we keep talking about this is because it just got bought and no one's talking about this.
Well, I think that's probably a big reason why Penske actually bought it, is he wants to revamp the sport. Because he knows that kind of like, right now IndyCar is not competing with the big, as you said, stick and ball sports like the NBA, MLB, NFL.
Or even NASCAR.
Or even NASCAR, yeah. So he wants
the
to change that.
NASCAR races on cable drawing more ratings than the IndyCar races on network. It's outside of the 500. So there's definitely room for improvement, room for more marketability. Of course, I mentioned Tuesday night on my show that if you take a look at IndyCar's YouTube channel versus Formula One's YouTube channel, there's no comparison. IndyCar maybe uploads a classic race here or there, maybe some highlights. F1 has highlights of every practice session, every qualifying session, every race, classic stuff, top 10 lists, you name it.
And I think with this new generation, that if you start marketing it a lot better, it's going to take off. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
Video game.
Oh, excuse you, that video game cough. Yeah, it's hitting me too. It wouldn't surprise me though if more people start getting involved with that, because Penske, he's 82, and I'm not sure how long he's going to run this league. Whether it be because of just the capability, because I mean the guy's 82, but I mean his age does come in. It kind of concerns me. And I was kind of wondering, was this purchase for him, or was it for his family to essentially carry on the Penske legacy?
Well, just to give you an idea of the man Roger Penske is, there's a 24-hour race at Daytona every year, a big sports car race with IMSA. Mm-hmm. Penske owns a couple of teams that compete in that. He stayed awake monitoring his teams for the entire 24 hours this past January. The guy's in his early 80s. So
I can't even do that.
There are fans that can't do it. His drivers need the rest that they can get. He stays up all through the night monitoring his teams.
I mean, it's truly, to put it lightly, I think Penske might be a workaholic.
I think he just loves the sport so much. Honestly, he just wants to be around it.
It's a joke. We know Penske is obsessed with it. And I mean, think about it. All the greats in sports obsess about their sport, and they try to find new ways to excel. And that's something that Penske's been doing. I mean, Penske, there's a reason the name, like people in the racing world know who Penske is. And I think now that he's, acquired IndyCar, I think the Penske name is going to be worth a lot more now. Because, I mean, IndyCar is arguably IndyCar is recognized worldwide. The diversity of the drivers ranges, from everywhere from Spain to the States, Canada, Mexico. Like, people are all over. And the Indianapolis 500 streamed globally, but it just got bought, and like I think Penske's going to be able to do a lot of good things with that, because I think he's connected enough with, how Formula One does it, how, he's going to be able to pick and choose.
He's got teams in, to be honest, pretty much everything except Formula One right now. He's got teams in NASCAR, teams in IMSA, teams racing in Australia, V8 supercars, so he's all over the map.
And I think with that, he's going to be able to pick and choose, like, hey, this really works in this league. Why don't we apply it to here? But I don't really like how this is done right now, so why don't we switch it with the way that Formula One does it? And I think he's going to be able to revolutionize the sport.
Yeah, no, I mean, one thing that I'm reading right now from USA Today is they're basically saying that he's probably going to try and encourage more drivers who are dabbling in both NASCAR and IndyCar to actually go forward and do more of it, and then possibly running series at the same place on the same weekend. So it's like,
double
hey,
headers is something that we've been trying to get off the ground for a long time.
Yeah. So it's like, hey, you love NASCAR? Well, here's it on steroids. There's the Indy 500.
Yeah, and vice versa. IndyCar fans want to go see a NASCAR race. Have a 2-for-1 deal one weekend.
I mean, seriously, like really that's something you can model a vacation around it. And I do have to say this, because I still want this so bad. I want to see an IndyCar race in a major city. I want to see, like, we were so close to getting it in Boston, and it got shut down. But I think Penske would have enough pull to actually pull it off. And I think it would be incredible. And I mean, it would be great for the city, it'd be great for the sport, because, if you think about it, say you have it in Boston. Everyone in Boston is going to be paying attention to it in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's going to a bar and watching it, whether it's going out and watching it out your back door, whether you're just, like, hey, yeah, did you hear about that race? Like, it's going to get an entire city buzzing.
Unfortunately, I feel like problems with that is, like, it's a lot of things to move. You need a lot of space. It might be outside a lot of major cities. A lot of major cities can't handle that. Because we could probably transform Foxborough. I'm not sure if there's a raceway in Boston. But it's kind of like out there, it's like...
Well, Long Beach has been going on for 40 years.
Yeah.
So like they have a system in place. They have people who know how to do it, how to handle it.
I mean, it can
Obviously,
be done.
Boston didn't.
Yeah.
So that's why it fell through.
I mean, but given how Boston's been able to handle the parades, I think they might be able to pull it off. I mean, I think the city would go into chaos for 3 days, but I think they'd be able to pull it off. And I mean, even if it's not in Boston.
New York, too. New York's got the Formula E race. It's been going for a few years now.
New York could do it. I think LA would be able to pull off something crazy like that, because California is full of crazy people.
Miami's close with their F1 deal.
Yeah,
they got some protesters that they got to try to work around.
Dude, honestly, if you get protesters, you're doing a good job. So this is like,
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you, as a fan and as somebody who's part of his community, seeing what others are saying, the sport's really been hurting since the split in 95-96 with the whole CART IRL deal.
Oh yeah.
And it's been 10 years now since the two sides went through reunification, and still looking for that major step forward that it can take. I think this might be it. The only concern that I have to say, the only concern that I had at first was, Penske runs 3 cars full time.
Yeah,
is that cars competing in a series that you now own, is that a conflict of interest? But then I remembered very quickly, Penske was one of the main owners of CART back in the day, which is a sanctioning body that ran American open wheel racing for many years, predated the IndyCar series. Then even in the IRL, there was a team that closed in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, and Tony George, who was part of a Holman George family, who are, ironically enough, the ones that owned the Speedway for 70-plus years, that family, and Penske just bought it from. Tony George bought the team, named it Vision Racing, had his own stepson, Ed Carpenter, driving for them for several years. They never won a race. So if there was a conflict of interest, it certainly didn't show in the competition with suspicious things going on with them winning all the time, and you have to question its legitimacy. So I don't see this being a problem. Penske's even mentioned that he's going to step down as a race strategist for Will Power. It sounds like his day-to-day operations with him and team are going to be taking a step back so that he can focus on the entities that he now owns, or at least that his company now owns. So I don't see that being a major issue.
No. Plus, I think the fact that people are pointing this out already, he's going to be under a microscope. So even if they...
And he said it himself. He wants to keep his image clean and ensure that any conflict of interest that could be seen is minimal at most.
Oh, yeah, now, I'm sure he's a man of integrity and doesn't want the sport to be made into a sideshow. So stepping down as that, I mean, even when, if the Penske car wins out of their own volition, people are still going to question it. It's so yeah, he's doing the very smart thing here and kind of just stepping away from it and focusing more on the larger picture stuff of promoting the sport.
Yeah. Penske's been strong for years, and he's owned a series before, so it's not wasn't an issue back then. I don't see it being a major issue
I
at this
mean,
point now.
you know, and Penske is just like, this guy is literally probably, in my mind, he's one of the most brilliant racing minds of all time. I mean, literally in this article, they have him, when they won the Indianapolis 500, they went to the White House and, they celebrated with the
He's been
president.
to the White House 3 times this year.
Yeah. So
This year.
Yeah, he won.
Wow.
Joey Logano won the NASCAR championship. His team was President Trump invited them for that. Then Simon Pagenaud won the Indy 500. They got the chance to go back for that. And then just very recently, within the last couple of weeks, President Trump actually awarded Roger Penske the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is, of course, the highest honor that can be given by a sitting president to a civilian. So,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if anything, I think since Penske's going to be under a microscope, and given how he has all of these, this good standing with not only the racing community, but just the community in general. Because I really, I have a hard time finding anything on Roger Penske that's like, yeah, he's a dirty little cheat. I mean, I'm sure I could probably find it if I really tried, but how valid it would be is up for debate. But I think Penske, it's going to be one of those things where we're going to have to wait. I really, really want Penske to take off and do extremely well with IndyCar because, in my opinion, IndyCar is better than NASCAR. I love IndyCar.
especially right now with the 2019 rules package and stages and playoffs and all that good stuff that you've heard me rant about several times on my show, but continue.
I mean, I'm tempted just to set it off right now, but we have too much to cover. So
You don't play stock car racing. You race. Why are they called playoffs?
So much for that. But I mean, our tech is just like, dude, can you pipe it down? The mic is gotta get all
Yeah,
flicky.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from. They're not putting people who know what they're talking about on the sport, and it's hurting it.
They're
I
trying
know
to get
we've
the
got
millennial
overtime
audience.
now. I mean, there's so many. People compare it to the NFL, the NBA. Like, why are you not comparing it to IndyCar, F1, IMSA, ARCA, all that stuff? It's not a stick and ball sport.
Yeah, I've always felt like there's been a problem with that when they put similarly how they kind of put it towards non-traditional sports. So like with NBC and their coverage of the Olympics, and they put out these people who are generally baseball announcers or football announcers, and they're saying stuff, and I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Rutledge Wood went down to Rio to cover the Summer Olympics.
Yeah, why?
And I don't have Rutledge Wood is a great guy, cool guy. I sometimes think he's a little too casual for some of the broadcasts NBC puts him on. I guess NBC wanted to send everybody down possible, but
yeah. And then they bring in the one former star who gives excellent analysis, and they're like,
what he said.
Great analysis there, Megan. Well, thank you you'll keep us updated. It's
and they pass the ball, and the ball is kicked, and they're doing a great job.
Yeah, it's
Goal! Wait. Oh, it's called off for some reason. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a big problem. You need people who are more knowledgeable on this stuff. And I'm sure Penske's actually going to, make those deals happen and say, look, I'm going to make this sport big.
Yeah.
Give me people who know what they're talking about.
I can honestly say I don't know that there is a man more qualified to make this purchase than
absolutely.
Roger Penske.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm very excited. I think that this could be a really great thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it all turns out.
Yeah. Well, not to beat a dead horse, I'm really excited about this. We're definitely going to keep you updated. And obviously, if not, tune into Ben's show, The Photo Finish, which is also on YouTube, Instagram, basically any form of social media. I mean, I don't think you have smoke signals, but
We're working on that.
Yeah, it's a work in progress.
I'm looking into iTunes and trying to get the actual audio and podcast stuff elsewhere, just to try to expand that even further. But
yeah, so obviously tune into his show. Great show. He also has a Ben Schneider show. One of the funniest shows, especially when you get people from the cross country and track team. Oh my gosh, I literally had one of my friends watch the Joe Tibbles episode, and he was dying. So make sure to look that up. It's great content.
we had Nate Hausman from Levita this week.
Yeah,
it was a great show, so go check that out on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, all right. So before we get into the main story of the night with one particular man who did not hang himself in his jail cell, we have some real and fake news. Because we have a guest, I've decided to go with 4 stories today.
3 real, 1 fake.
Exactly.
Oh my.
All right.
Well, we have 4 stories. All right.
I've never gotten this right, so we'll see how
You've
this
done it
goes.
once, but okay.
Although, to be fair, I've done it to you, and you guessed twice and got it wrong both times. So.
Yeah, so, all right. So,
It's really hard being on the receiving end.
yeah,
of it.
I know. I'm usually the one making these plans, but it's just all of a sudden it's like, woohoo, flippity flip. And then it's just like, wait, what the flip? All right. God, I sound like a millennial. All right. Woman seen in video taunting lion at Bronx Zoo turned herself in. Myra Autry said her reasoning for jumping into the lion's den was a lot more of a spiritual experience and that she was never afraid while she was in there. Have you not seen Harambe?
That seems believable.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you really just talk about like Daniel in the lion's den. It's like I wasn't afraid. Like my God was with me. It's like sometimes God puts you in the lion's den. Sometimes you put yourselves in the lion's den. Don't confuse the two.
The video went viral, and she turned herself into the NYPD in the Bronx Wednesday night. Police said she now faces 2 counts of criminal trespassing. According to the Daily News, Autry has suddenly turned quiet, not telling police why she performed the strange stunt or why she finally turned herself in. It's the drugs. But
she did it for the fine.
I mean, literally, she did it for the vine, and
then
almost a strange interaction with the animals at the zoo. She began with her bowing to the reporters as she greeted them with shalom. She is definitely on some drugs.
that's very
She
unusual,
rambled for
I believe.
15 minutes outside the courthouse, and she said it was a spiritual experience and that she was never afraid. Well, and her quote, "I fear nobody, no animal, no human, no one. So I wasn't fearing the lion because the lion loved me." Yeah, he loved you because you probably reminded him of the succulent steak that he had for lunch that day.
Probably, yeah.
And to continue on, that's why he came to me, and I let the lion know, "Lion, I love you." And I had to say it like that because it's literally written just like that. Thank you, NECN, for that very accurate description. Why is this
Was
news?
it written like that? Did they use an unusual font?
There is a different font. I would show you, but you'll probably see it. All
Yeah.
right. Anyway.
You would show me, but I'd see it. That's generally how eyes work.
Yeah, I know. You're not blind? I mean, what the heck is wrong with you? This is radio. We never see anything. University accepts peanut butter and jelly sandwiches as form of payment for parking tickets.
Have you had a PB&J? Those things are good. That's
anyone with
classic money-saving sandwich.
Anyone with an unpaid parking ticket fined at the University of Alaska Anchorage campus has the option to reduce or cover the cost of their tickets with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. This is on HuffPo, so Anchorage, Alaska, what a lip-smacking offer. My God, I hate you, HuffPo.
Not sure if it's lip smacking, more of just satisfying.
Yeah.
So, it's just
KT,
you eat it for the nostalgia. You eat it and suddenly you're 6 years old and you're back from playing in the backyard and your mom made you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
KTUU-TV reported that the university would take donations as their annual payment tradition until November 8th to help combat student hunger. Officials say that the food goes to students in need. They say that each person could use PB&J payments for 2 citations issued within the past 45 days. Officials say that 2 16-ounce jars offer $10 credit, 3 jars offer 35 credit, and 5 jars offer 60 credit. Officials say any unopened commercial nut butter, almond, cashew, peanut butter, or any flavored jam, jelly, or marmalade preserve would be accepted.
No. You got to be very strict. We are talking peanut butter, and we are talking creamy peanut butter, not crunchy.
Okay.
And the jelly, Smuckers. That is the only acceptable form.
Monday night, black cat still on the loose at MetLife.
Oh, I love that one.
East Rutherford, New Jersey. The elusive black cat from the Monday Night Football is still on the run. MetLife Stadium officials said Thursday the search for the fleet feline briefly delayed the national televised game between the Giants and the Cowboys on Monday night has been unsuccessful. Dude, this cat is fat. Like, it's more elusive than Shaquan Barkley.
Did you guys hear Kevin Harlan's radio call?
No, I didn't.
I don't know if we can try to pull that up quickly. But, like,
all right.
I think it's further proof that the man can call absolutely anything.
Oh, he can. I mean, it was so much fun just to see it happen. I mean, it was such an omen. But, I mean, he probably rushed for more yards than Saquon did that day.
Yeah, so
it's still on the loose.
So the search started on Tuesday morning with multiple humane traps being stationed in the stadium. After that came up empty, stadium officials asked Puppy Kitty NYC City, a trap, neuter, release, and no-kill shelter for help. We are hopeful that together we can find the black cat that we all fell in love with on Monday night, the stadium statement said. Puppy Kitty NYC City said the statement Thursday that if the cat is caught, it will be assessed for a home and relocation. Even though we want to relocate him, we still support TNR, Trap, Neuter, Release programs, the nonprofit volunteer run rescue organization said in its release. Are we ready? All right.
All right, well, here's the Kevin Harlan call.
Yes.
He's walking to the 3. He's at the 2. And the cat is in the CDW red zone. CDW, people who get it now, a policeman, a state trooper has come on the field. And the cat rolls into the end zone. That is a touchdown. And the cat is elusive, kind of like Barkley and Elliott. But he didn't know where to go.
Better.
Look at, they're trying to corner him. And they got him in the end zone. There are state troopers all around this cat, which now climbs up into the stands. And the fans are running for their life. Now it goes back on the field again. And it's running in the back of the end zone. And it runs up the tunnel.
Wow, I mean,
Kevin Harlan, you can call anything.
he's Hall of Fame, dude. He's Hall of Fame, undoubtedly.
I'm telling you.
I liked the touchdown he had. He's walking to the 3, going, touchdown! With the same voice he uses. I love it. I love
In fact,
it.
he even got the advertisement in there, too. Like, he was like,
Getting
we're in the
those-
CW end zone, red zone, touchdown. And it's like, oh my gosh.
Gotta get those sponsorship
Dude, that guy
plugs.
could commentate paint drying, and everyone would just be like, "Yeah, let's go!
I'm gonna hire.
Let's go, blue paint! Let's go!
I'm gonna hire him to come in and for my theories of international relations final, I'm gonna have him come in and commentate that and get me excited about those.
Dude, can we have him commentate politics? And Donald Trump drops the pen. He's going, and he signs it
Oh, what a thing!
on
And it's
appealment of the
official.
Second Amendment. Wait, that's not good.
Wait, he just wrote over the Constitution. Is this
Oh,
even allowed?
Then we get the Jim Ross in here. Oh, good God Almighty! Stop the dang match.
Woo! Okay, the last news story.
Last
Chase.
news story. Florida man shooting at Target in backyard hits his
It's
neighbor
true. Florida man, it's true. You got a voice.
sitting at dining room table. What did he say? A Collier County man Target practice. Excuse me, my voice is a little hoarse after the Jim Ross calling. Went horribly wrong on Monday when deputies say he shot a woman who was sitting at her dining room table.
Oh Lord.
Juan Arreguin? Arguin?
Arugula?
Arugula? I don't know.
Vegetable.
Juan is charged with
His
one
name is
count of
Juan.
shooting. Is one count of shooting a missile into a dwelling and one count of discharging a firearm in public. Around 2:20 p.m., deputies responded to a report of a woman with a possible gunshot wound. Okay, how is it a possible gunshot wound? Just all of a sudden something. Ow, my shoulder! Dang, what beaches has that sting power?
It's like possible GSW. Oh no, sorry, it was a crossbow. My bad, guys. Wrong call.
Oh, sorry, my bad. You know.
Possible crossbow wound.
Oh, dang. Bart, what you do putting that for chili, man? It's like going right through me.
The heartburn, but
The 21-year-old victim appeared to have injuries to her right arm and right side. She told deputies that she was sitting at her dining room table, which is next to a window, and then there was a loud crash at the window, and she felt something strike her right arm and side. Deputies discovered a hole in the window adjacent to where a woman was sitting and a bullet on the floor 8 to 10 feet away from her. The woman told deputies right before she was injured she heard gunshots coming from the home behind her property. The woman was treated for minor injuries at a local hospital and released. Detectives say Juan had been shooting at a target, a bottle set up against a packed down mulch with his Ruger 44 SW handgun right before deputies arrived.
I mean, I think we can all agree on one thing. No matter what your opinion is on the Second Amendment and gun control, anyone who's a Florida man does not need a gun. They obviously cannot be trusted.
And one thing we can also definitively say, Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself.
That's the fake news story. Okay, so let's go over the.
I swear the Clintons are gonna find this, and all of a sudden we're all gonna be dead. I mean,
so we got so what are the stories? It's the spiritual lion woman.
We got the spiritual lion's den tamer. We got the
PB&J.
We got the Alaska University with peanut butter and jelly. We got the Monday Night Feline.
That's a good name.
That's still evading the MetLife Stadium, and
then
we
Florida
got the Florida Man.
This is tough, Ben. Since you're the
Well, nothing's too crazy for Florida, man. I'm leaning towards the. I don't know. It's a toss-up between the. What was it? A woman jumping into a lion's den or whatever. Toss-up between that or PB&J. I don't know. I'm gonna hand it off to you because I need some more time.
All right, well, I'm gonna go straight with the PB&J one for the University of Alaska or Anchorage.
Alaska Anchorage.
Alaska. Okay, I was right. I was right both times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Just to better the chances of one of us getting it, I guess I'll take the Lion's Den story.
All right, 50-50.
They're all true.
What? Wait.
How
dare you?
To be very honest, I saw one of these, and the other one is out. You know what? I could change this to Texas man, but then you walked in the door and you saw, Florida man. I guess that's what it is, and I'm like, son of a gun, man. So,
you.
So I cheated on that one. I'll take.
You have hoodwinked us.
Dude, that's the thing, though. All of these could have been true, but at the same time, all of these could have been fake.
We never know anymore.
That's the whole reason why we do this segment is because we want you guys to think about it. Hey, is this actually true, what these people are telling me?
Yeah,
because I could literally go on a rant about how Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler, went over and fought Martians to save the planet. And I mean, you guys would probably think, man, this guy's on drugs.
Did the press secretary really say that?
Yeah, exactly. What? I mean, literally, it's like, you gotta think for yourself. You gotta cross-examine it, because if you just take one news source, there's bias. No matter what you do, because honestly, there is no such thing as a perfectly unbiased news station in the country today. And it's very sad, because, there's a lot of good news that can be produced, and I feel like a lot of it is based on the reporters, as we're going to get into with the Jeffrey Epstein case. But really, that's kind of our hope, and that's been the goal since day one, is that we want you guys to think for yourselves. We want to provide you all the stories, and you guys can figure it out for yourself. So, yeah. All right. So, anyway, and one more thing to mention, Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself.
So we're going into the Epstein story?
So we're going into the Epstein story.
All right, man, this is, okay, for those unfamiliar, it's a wild story that, honestly, it seriously seems like a Hollywood movie script. So Jeffrey Epstein, billionaire, I think he's a real estate mogul. I could be wrong in his line of work, but he was a real estate mogul with connections to some of the highest, richest, most powerful people in the world. And it was revealed back in, I believe it was July, that he was a massive sex trafficker that trafficked underage girls who were then raped by his high-end clients. He had his own island that he owned that people would book flights to and they would take it to. And as this story came out, some names were revealed. That of our current president, Donald Trump. He was well-connected to Jeffrey Epstein.
If he got into real estate, it makes sense.
He was well-connected to Jeffrey Epstein. He was good friends with him. Former President Bill Clinton.
Makes sense.
I mean, he was. There was a very odd portrait of Bill Clinton of him wearing a pink dress that was found in a portrait in Epstein's home when the FBI seized it. And then probably the most surprising one is Prince Edward's from England. There was a photo taken him by a FBI sting showing him coming out of the Epstein mansion years back with a girl who was very clearly underage. In fact, she testified and was 16 at the time. So
Makes me sick.
Oh, it's incredibly sick. And then what makes it even more crazy was that when Epstein got put into prison, and apparently he tried to kill himself, so they put him on a 24-hour psychiatric watch.
Tried to kill himself.
Tried to kill himself on 24-hour psychiatric watch. Then, as it turns out, they found him hanging from his jail cell. Apparently the guards left him alone for 45 minutes because one of them fell asleep.
And they had no security footage of this either.
They apparently no, because apparently that... So then what gets this even more strange is they were, I was watching, I believe it was a Fox News analysis of it when I was at the gym one morning, and they were talking about how the kind of the difference is kind of like one of the bones broke in the neck that is more consistent with a strangulation rather than a suicide. So there are some questions have arose about whether or not Jeffrey Epstein's death was by his own hand or whether he was murdered. And then, because this story won't go away, there was another big breaking news, and Chase, please explain it.
I think the big thing to mention is God bless the meme community, because there have been so many Jeffrey Epstein memes. I mean, there was a guy, I think he was on CNN, he was like a veteran, a Navy SEAL, and he was talking with him, and they were kind of debating, like whether or not Trump pulling out of Iraq was a good idea, or I think, is it Iraq?
Northern Syria.
Northern Syria. And they were just like, and then he's like, all right, thank you, God bless the United States, and Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. And I'm just like, you know what? What are you going to do? He's a Navy SEAL. I mean, I'm sorry, he could slap me in the face and I would thank him and I'd probably pay him $20. I mean, like, this guy's a tank. And, like, so, like, and the meme community kept this alive. And then I saw this recently. Originally, I saw it from a Steven Crowder post. For those of you who don't know, I find his comedy hilarious. I mean, believe it or not, he is a comedian. He definitely has political views, but I mean,
who doesn't?
I mean, literally, but he is able to have a form of political satire that I find is rational, or really funny, and I find for the most part, most of his points can be rational. Obviously, I don't agree with him on everything, but I think for the most part, he does. He's one of the political commentaries, who is fair. I mean, you can understand some of his arguments, or most of his arguments. I mean, there's some things where you kind of have to stretch, but it is what it is. There is a video released by Project Veritas, which is mostly regarded as a conspiracy group, which, I mean, understandable, but then they had unedited footage of footage from ABC News, where I believe it was Amy Robach, I believe.
Amy Robach, yeah, she's she has an odd last name.
Yeah. She was talking about how she had apparently had the Jeffrey Epstein story for 3 years, and ABC News would not publish it because she first kind of responded. She's like, "Yeah, I took this to my boss," and he's like, "Jeffrey Epstein, who? Like, what? Like, this doesn't make any sense." And then they kept, they had one of the victims came out and talked to them for 3. She kept it quiet pretty much for a while, and then they convinced her to come out. That she shared their story, and then, they shut it down, and they're like, yeah, you're not talking about it, because they found out that Prince Edward was actually involved, and the palace then threatened ABC with a million different things, her words, not mine. And then, the video goes on to basically say how she was so frustrated because she had a story that turned out to be true, and she's like, I had this for years, and no one believed me. And obviously, with Project Veritas, for the most part, they are, the owner or the CEO of Project Veritas, he says that his style is guerrilla journalism. So, James O'Keefe, he published a footage that included Robach saying that ABC refused to air the interview she conducted with one of Epstein's victims. And I told Liam this, and he's like, honestly, this is bull crap. I mean, they're a conspiracy group.
Oh, yeah. The two main sources I saw when I looked up the story was from Project Veritas and Breitbart, 2 right-wing conspiracy theory groups. So I kind of just said that. Let's not jump on the story right away.
And lo and behold, ABC issued a response, which usually implies either A, it's just so far out of left field it doesn't matter, or B, it's actually true and they're like, oh shoot, this wasn't supposed to get out.
Yeah, their response kind of makes it a legitimate
and then on
claim
top
at
of that
point.
Newsweekly responded to it. NPR is now responding to it. Fox News is reporting on it. I don't think CNN has released anything yet, if I'm not mistaken. But
Let me just check that real quick.
I could be very wrong with that. But this kind of it confuses me because the Jeffrey Epstein case, honestly, Jeffrey Epstein was putrid, but he reported that, he has a black book of basically all the names that, people who went in and out of that, out of his, play place, and if that were to get out, there would be a lot of rich and powerful people who would essentially lose all credibility, possibly face jail time, and a lot of bad things, a lot of hassle for them. And then all of a sudden, Jeffrey Epstein just, funny enough, tries to kill himself, then gets put in a ward. Because, I mean, I am by no means a prison expert, but having a sister who works in law enforcement and having watched enough episodes of Lockup, which is a documentary series done by NBC or MSNBC. In a 24-hour psychiatric watch unit, one doesn't just fall asleep in that ward. I mean, usually they go door to door to make sure everyone's okay, and they usually sit down for a little bit. And then on top of that, the cameras just don't go off. And then depending on the ward itself, the person is wearing clothes that, aren't rippable. There is no bed sheet that can tear. And there's no way for them to actually properly kill themselves. You would essentially have to bang your head into the wall, a billion times. But even then, you would probably knock yourself out before you actually hurt yourself. And on top of that, the autopsy results show that it's more commonly with strangulation based on the way that the bone or his neck broke. I'm not convinced that this wasn't... Someone else had to be involved with this. I mean, obviously, people threw around the Clintons. Because, obviously, let's be real, the Clintons have a hit, they kind of have a reputation of, people who are somewhat close to them mysteriously dying. But
and a lot of those are very false and have pushed conspiracy theory. But
then again, this is a conspiracy theory too. Just saying, we're pulling a conspiracy corner over here. That's on Friday nights, but
or the most powerful man in all the world, killed him. Not naming names, but I think my theory trumps yours.
Donald Trump joke. It's really this really bothers me because not only is ABC News really obstructing journalism, because Amy Robach she had a decent story. And ABC, in their quote, they said that the story didn't have enough substance to it, and it wasn't a good enough story to really go off of. And then all of a sudden, they made a statement. It's like, oh, well, we've been continuing to investigate this story, and we're going to be releasing a documentary and a 6-part podcast about it. I'm sorry, you don't care about the journalism, you don't care about the victims, you don't care about anything that went on, you just want to make a quick buck. Change my mind.
Yeah, no, that's basically what it is. If they had this story 3 years ago, first of all, Jeffrey Epstein's sexual trafficking exploits has been known about for a long time. He got charged with it before in Miami, but the district attorney at the time, Alex Acosta of Miami, he let him go on a very lenient plea deal that even at the time, he was people were saying, dude, what are you doing? And Alex Acosta went on to be the Secretary of Labor before he actually resigned. But, so you can tell this kind of goes all the way up.
Yeah.
This goes to the very rich and powerful. It goes to the royal family.
Amy Robach said it herself. I tried for 3 years to get it out to no avail, and now these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it, Robach says on tape. I'm so pissed right now. Everyone, like every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, it was what we had was unreal. And I mean, NPR, apparently they released a story about how they heard that, or they tried to interview one of the victims, and she said, well, I got interviewed by ABC and they haven't, posted it yet. And so NPR took that and they released something saying, hey, they didn't release a statement. Then Project Veritas releases a video of that clip. And funny enough, they actually ABC found out who the whistleblower was. It's weird not talking about this and talking about an impeachment inquiry, but I'm not going to complain. I'm getting sick and tired of talking about that. So the report spread widespread outrage on that ABC was going after the leaker and attempting to get them fired from CBS while downplaying the fact that the network killed the Epstein story in the first place. Funny enough, the whistleblower had switched over to CBS and is working on, I believe, what they call the Tiffany Network. I don't know what that is, so do not ask me. It's a branch of CBS, I believe. And really, what's scary, though, is that Project Veritas, they said any reporter, from a recognized, news network that has anything on these stories, come forward, share your piece, and we're going to get it out there, and we're going to keep you anonymous. 6 reporters have come forward as of right now.
That's pretty insane.
And this is the scary part, though, is that Steven Crowder interviewed the guy from Project Veritas, and I encourage you to watch that interview because, obviously, yeah, Steven Crowder, he has his bias. I'm not even going to try and deny that. But the interview is actually kind of haunting. Because you think about it, they have the people who are supposedly on this, blacklist or, who are in the, notebook of Jeffrey Epstein. It's a lot of rich and powerful people. And it kind of makes you think, what's going to come of this? So, Ben, you've been kind of quiet. Are we scaring you, or?
Well, I don't know. Death, taxes, and Epstein didn't kill himself. That's really where I...
It's certainly very unusual. I'm not surprised the story has been squashed for a long time. But honestly, kind of kudos to Project Veritas in this particular instance. I am being very clear. This one particular instance, I'm glad that they are saying, come to us and we'll keep you anonymous, because they understand probably the dangers come from it and the major networks that will try and
watch the video of Amy Rubach, because it's around 30 minutes of her ranting, and she says that she's scared now for all the victims, because if they figured out, or because she's come forward now, her name is out there, and she has divulged names that would throw people under the bus, and she's gonna need protection, because it would not surprise me if whoever came for Epstein, because people are still some sources are still saying it was a suicide.
Well, and that was the official ruling from the coroner. There was an outside autopsy that said, I believe from New York State, the outside autopser said, we believe that this is more consistent with a homicide. However, the official coroner did came out and said it was a suicide. And that can be through it could be because of multitude of reasons, how tightly the noose was around his neck, or from how high he jumped off of, or possibly if he had lost a lot of weight, then the force could break the bones because the body is weaker from losing the weight. So multiple factors could have been. We're not saying the person is lying and there's a major government conspiracy, but we're saying there might be.
There's just so much, because his cellmate wasn't replaced. That's not normal. The guard's falling asleep. Obviously, that's concerning in any instance, and
all of a sudden the cameras go out.
Security cameras not being. There's just. I don't know if that's just a perfect storm of mishaps or things that were overlooked, but I don't know.
Sometimes a perfect storm is man-made.
It's all too convincing. So really, we're gonna keep you updated on this story, because it's definitely going to blow up more. Because ABC is essentially going headhunting now for anyone who's essentially leaking anything. And, The person who did leak the information to Project Veritas has been fired by CBS. And this is really concerning because now it's like, I think like with this happening, I think both CBS, ABC, and my guess is NBC probably got the memo too. Anyone who crosses the line on this Epstein case, we're coming for you. So
maybe a little too cynical, but I think certainly people are trying to squash it because they have to respond to the board of directors and presidents. And I think as we have shown, a lot of the people who are getting kind of exposed by Epstein, a lot of the people being connected to him, have sexual misconduct allegations in the past. I know Matt Lauer from NBC, he's one of the higher-ups there, and he was recently let go for several sexual harassment claims against him.
I wonder
I think even more just came out fairly recently, right?
I'm sure, yes. I with people who sexually harass and sexually, it tends to not be a one-time thing. It tends to be repeated patterns of violation and inappropriate behavior. So with all these rich and higher ups thinking that oh my goodness, there was a Bible verse that I read over the summer that I thought was absolutely incredible because it just applied to this so much. It's from Proverbs 18:11. The wealth of the rich is their fortified city. They imagine a wall too high to scale. Now that's thousands of years ago that was written, and it still applies today. It's
so much so that he had to slap the table.
Exactly. God told me to. I'm sorry.
Just like Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself.
It was filled with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. So, all right. We're gonna close it. We're gonna start wrapping it up here. We got Ben. Did you find a happy, good news story?
All right. Give me a minute.
I actually have a good news story.
Go for it, Leo.
4-year-old model with Down syndrome slays an American Girl doll catalog.
Oh my god.
Basically, they for the American Girl catalog, they put out their annual thing in an attempt to create more diverse. They want to create more diverse dolls so more children feel represented. So they featured Ivy Kimball, a 4-year-old model with Down syndrome who was featured in the October catalog standing in front of a Christmas tree holding her American Girl doll. Basically, her mother was very thrilled as she landed it because they feel like a lot of people with disabilities, Down syndrome, autism, even more obvious physical disabilities, they feel very underrepresented in the media. So they're very happy that American Girl doll is taking these steps to kind of push for people with more disabilities in the media to be represented.
And kind of riding off that, I do have one story that is too good not to share.
Yeah.
So, obviously college basketball is starting back up again, and Kaylin Bennett is the first ever player with special needs to score in a D1 game. Bennett, who has autism, he scored a basket in the game against, I believe it was...
He plays for... He plays for Kent State, correct?
Yes, he plays for Kent State. They were killing Hiram, I think that's how you say it, Hiram. It was 91. Kent State had 91. Hiram had 54. They put Bennett in, and he just creamed it. Like, literally, he just crushed it. And, yep, he is now the first player in NCAA D1 history to score. And he also got a and one, too. And his team really came around him. And honestly, really my dream for this is that one day, like, he gets to the point where he's so good, they don't see him as, oh, he's that kid with autism. They're like, oh, yeah, that's Kalim Bennett. He's a really good player. And, you know, someone you got to worry about. Because, I mean, dude, this guy is, like, towering.
He's big.
Yeah, he's towering.
Yeah, I saw
over
the video.
him.
And I'll tell you what, that was a lefty hook shot.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, a lot of kids in college, including myself, don't know how to hit a lefty hook shot. So I'm not sure if he's a lefty naturally, but that's a good shot.
Yeah.
Legitimate. I think it's a big step for people with disabilities in sports.
And it just goes to show you that, you know what, no matter what happens, you know, no matter what your disability, that doesn't have to define you. You know, it really is about how you go into it, how you train for it, and if you decide, you know what, I have this hurdle, I'm just going to stay put, you know, it's too much. Or it could be, you know what, I got this hurdle. I'm going to crush it. I'm going to jump over it, and then I'm going to keep going. And I feel like that's what Colleen Bennett is doing. And
there was a this is a few years back. I remember it. The Globetrotters. They had on one of their traveling teams. They had a kid with Down syndrome shooting for them, and he was literally a 3-point wizard. Like he made them like 9 out of 10 times because obviously they do like people with disabilities very well with like routine and things like that. There's nothing more routine than having the same shooting stroke every time and hitting from behind the arc. So apparently he just loved the game, and the Globetrotters like brought him along because he was fantastic.
Really the Globetrotters, they're insane. The Washington Wizard, or was it the Washington Generals?
Yes.
They really. The funny thing is though is that they train just as hard as like an NCAA program, and they actually made a decent living. And he's just like, yeah, we were expected to perform like professionals, but yet we knew every single game that we had to get blown out of the water. And we literally, and they're just like, yeah, there are some times where it's like we had to literally get dunked all over and like make a fool of ourselves. But at the same time, we still like, they were basically told, yeah, don't try. I think it was 9 out of 10, but on the 10, make it look convincing. So it was like, it was incredible. So, all right,
I actually did find one.
Give it to us. We need more
August.
good news after talking about the Epstein stuff.
Yeah, so I'm a runner. Most of you know, if you know me on campus here, I'm on the cross-country team. Found a story from Women's Day back from August. Jennifer Smith, the heaviest woman to finish a marathon, proves that anyone can run. Smith's 33, 346 pounds. She's had a couple accidents and surgeries that have hindered her, but has been determined as ever. Completed several 5Ks, and before, just recently, first she'd ever run was 8 miles. So, you know, a marathon being 26.2 is over 3 times that. So, something that seems, something seems darn near impossible. And what was almost darn near impossible was finding a marathon that she knew she could enter, because a lot of them have time limits. And obviously, you know, with just the state that she's in, getting under that time limit would be virtually impossible to do. But she found a marathon that was understanding of her situation, allowed her to compete, and she finished the race. And Guinness World Record is still pending because, you know, Guinness and how strict they are trying to ratify everything. But it's still an incredible story.
Yeah, so... All right, that is our show for tonight. This has been the end. We just want to confirm that Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. And really just, you know...
If we die in the next week, just know that you should look into it. It's a conspiracy.
Yeah. So, really, just thank you for tuning in. We got another show coming up in 5 minutes. Do not go away. Same bat time, same bat channel next week. I'm your host, Chase Draus, alongside my equally host, Liam Carroll. Special guest, Ben Schneider. Thank you so much, Ben, for coming on air.
Of course.
And we'll definitely be he will be posting this on his YouTube channel. So if you are watching this on YouTube, please make sure to drop a like, subscribe, comment how much you love Ben. He's a great guy. Again, don't let your own lips praise you, so I'm going to do it for you. That is the show. Good night, everybody.